Dinar shift. Welcome to this vital discussion. Before you look away, stay with us for the next half hour because the information we are about to present could significantly influence your understanding of the Iraqi dinar's long-term trajectory. Lately, the digital landscape has been saturated with alarming messages. A torrent of rumors, anxiety, and sharp speculation, warning that a lop, or a drastic sudden devaluation, is imminent for the dinar. This incessant chatter across social media and various online forums has undoubtedly created substantial worry among those who currently hold or are considering acquiring the currency, leading many to feel confused, stressed, or even regretful of their initial decisions. It's a pervasive atmosphere of fear that seems to dominate the conversation. But what if the widespread anxiety over a catastrophic currency collapse is fundamentally misplaced? What if, instead of being on the verge of a financial crash, the Iraqi dinar possesses inherent structural protections that point toward a more stable, or even gradually strengthening future? Our goal today is to cut through the sensationalist noise and deliver a clear, factual analysis grounded in fundamental economic realities to explain precisely why a destructive lop of the dinar is highly improbable. We will deconstruct the basis of the current panic, demonstrating why informed holders, looking ahead into 2025 and beyond, are likely in a more strategically sound position than the fear-mongers suggest. By the end of this comprehensive breakdown, you will have a much clearer picture of the currency's true standing. The majority of the current apprehension regarding the dinar's future centers on a few emotionally charged terms: devaluation, collapse, redenomination, or the dreaded lop. However, these terms are often thrown around without the essential financial context or a true grasp of what they represent within a national economy. For the average person, hearing a word like collapse instantly triggers a primal fear response, the assumption that value will evaporate overnight. The reality of modern currency management, particularly in a sovereign nation, is far more complex than a simple on-off switch. Currency value is meticulously overseen and managed by the central bank, which is supported by tangible economic factors such as foreign reserves, international trade, and national production. Therefore, it is imperative to move beyond the alarmist headlines and scrutinize the actual mechanisms that govern currency stability, separating unverified hype from verifiable economic reality. Our analysis relies strictly on the logic of how national currencies, complex economies, and interconnected global financial systems operate, and how these principles specifically apply to Iraq and the dinar in the current environment. We are deliberately avoiding emotionally driven rhetoric or unsubstantiated gossip. A key contributor to the widespread worry is Iraq's turbulent modern history. The nation's past is undeniably marked by significant challenges, including conflicts, international sanctions, and political instability. This unsettled history often leads external observers to extrapolate and assume that further catastrophic financial events, like a sudden currency devaluation, are perpetually likely. The crucial counterpoint to this historical concern is the sheer resilience of the Iraqi dinar. Despite enduring years of intense pressure, the currency has survived, and the essential institutions responsible for its management, the central bank, government financial bodies, and foreign trade partners, have not only adapted but have actively restructured and stabilized their operations. The continued domestic and international circulation of the dinar is a powerful testament to its inherent durability. Crucially, any intentional harmful devaluation or lopping of the currency would directly undermine this hard-won resilience. Such a reckless move would shatter public and international confidence in Iraq's economic management, severely damaging its relationship with the global community that trades, invests, and plans future projects with the nation. Historically, inflicting damage upon its own currency has never been, nor is it now, aligned with Iraq's strategic long-term goals for recovery and growth. At the very core of Iraq's economic stability is its vast oil wealth. Iraq is globally recognized as one of the world's most significant oil producers, which grants it an extraordinary advantage in generating national revenue and supporting its currency. The global oil market, in which Iraq is a major participant, predominantly prices its commodity in US dollars. The continuous export of this oil ensures a steady and massive inflow of hard foreign currency reserves into the country. This consistent pipeline of US dollars does not simply disappear. It forms the critical stabilizing backbone that underpins the dinar's value, acting as a crucial buffer against global market fluctuations that can influence other national currencies. Iraq's capacity to reliably generate US dollars through its oil exports functions as an indispensable safety net, a fact that cannot be lightly dismissed in any honest assessment of the dinar's risks. For a truly drastic, negative currency adjustment, such as a destructive lop, to be necessary, this immense oil-backed inflow of hard currency would need to either vanish entirely or be drastically curtailed. Currently, there are no credible signs or projections to suggest that this is occurring. This reliable oil-dollar pipeline provides the Iraqi economy with a foundational level of predictability that is absent in many other emerging economies. This predictability inherently reduces the incentives and the perceived necessity for the government to resort to desperate, unilateral currency measures. To visualize this stabilizing effect, consider a valuable asset, like a large commercial property, where the owner consistently receives a substantial monthly rental income that reliably covers all maintenance and debt obligations. This financial consistency provides the owner with the confidence to maintain and invest in the asset, knowing its costs are manageable over time. The same powerful principle applies to Iraq and the dinar. The consistent oil revenue provides the central bank and the government with reliable inflows of foreign currency. This resource is essential for funding government operations, maintaining foreign reserves, and bolstering general economic stability, significantly reducing the necessity for sudden forced devaluations. As long as these robust dollar inflows are maintained, and current oil output and export forecasts strongly suggest they will be, the dinar possesses a powerful, built-in structural defense against financially destabilizing actions. Beyond the visible revenues, we must also consider the less visible, yet highly impactful institutional systems that underpin the currency: the banking infrastructure, the government's fiscal and monetary policies, international trade agreements, and the regulatory frameworks. These systems function as the skeleton and critical support network for the dinar. In established, stable economies, these structures evolve slowly, adapt incrementally to external pressures, and are designed to absorb financial shocks. In Iraq's case, particularly following the major turbulence of the last few decades, many of these systems have already been stress-tested repeatedly. They have been forced to adapt, and they have done so in a manner that, at the very least, makes catastrophic unplanned currency moves highly unlikely. For an individual to wake up tomorrow and find a massively devalued dinar, it would require a confluence of major institutional catastrophes, a complete collapse of the major banks, a sudden and total cessation of oil revenue, and the breakdown of all international trade relationships. Such a sequence of events is not merely unlikely, it is bordering on the virtually unthinkable given Iraq's current integration into the global energy market. Furthermore, imagine the devastating effect on both domestic and international investor confidence should the government arbitrarily devalue the currency severely. Trust would be instantly annihilated. Foreign entities would immediately exit or demand punitive discounts on future dealings. Banks would dramatically restrict credit, trade deals would falter, and domestic inflation would spiral out of control. For those holding dinar-denominated savings or investments, a severe devaluation would not only mean a loss in currency value, but also pervasive economic chaos, price instability, soaring living costs, limited access to essential imports, and severe general financial hardship across the populace. Such an event would constitute a severe blow, not a minor shakeup. For a nation like Iraq, which harbors significant long-term ambitions for economic recovery and sustained growth, inflicting such widespread political, economic, and social damage is a decision that makes no rational sense. The political and social costs would simply be too great, making a reckless lop a self-defeating and counterproductive measure. It is here that we must address the persistent conflict between widespread rumor and factual reality, a battle often played out on platforms rife with half-truths and unchecked speculation. It is undeniably easy to generate panic in an environment where fear feels urgent and spreads rapidly. Individuals with little to no verifiable insider knowledge often issue dramatic, worst-case predictions that gain traction simply because they are alarming. However, the emotional currency of rumors is never backed by institutional logic, sound economic data, or the reality of a Treasury report. Treating social media hyperbole as fact inevitably traps holders in a cycle of perpetual panic. It is therefore crucial to take a step back and objectively assess the fundamental question. Does this devaluation claim hold up under the pressure of real economic facts? Or is it merely another sensationalist post designed solely to attract clicks and views? To successfully filter out this distracting noise, the informed holder or potential investor must focus exclusively on verifiable, measurable data. This means scrutinizing official oil output levels, tracking export revenues, monitoring foreign currency reserves, observing international trade activity, and paying close attention to official statements from recognized financial authorities. These indicators are trackable, they have historical context, and they offer a tangible basis for assessment. In stark contrast, rumors are typically vague, often employing uncertain language like sources say maybe, which carries zero accountability. The fundamental strategy must be to only accept what can be verified against past patterns and present institutional behavior. Are there documented reports of a severe crisis, Is the oil revenue stream drying up? Are the major banking institutions collapsing? Thus far, the consistent answer to all these critical questions remains a resounding no. This does not guarantee an immediate, explosive revaluation, but it conclusively demonstrates that the necessary preconditions for a destructive LOP are simply not present in the current economic framework. Diving deeper into the recent economic history, particularly as we look towards 2025, the global economy has been marked by significant volatility. Oil prices have fluctuated, global demand has shifted, and numerous countries worldwide have faced genuine severe currency stress. Despite this pronounced external turbulence, the Iraqi dinar has demonstrated a remarkable relative stability. This stability in and of itself is a powerful and intentional signal. It indicates that the country's core financial framework, encompassing foreign exchange inflows, export revenues, internal fiscal management, and government bank coordination, has performed its function effectively even under significant external duress. The framework has held, suggesting that the currency's stability is not a fluke of luck but a carefully managed outcome. This stability is the result of deliberate design, a currency that is consciously managed, underpinned by actual export income, and supported by a network of strengthening, albeit imperfect, financial institutions and vital international trade relationships. Adding further confidence are the significant reform efforts seen in recent years. There is tangible evidence of a focus on modernizing the banking infrastructure, reinforcing key international banking relationships, and updating financial regulatory practices. These efforts are not being pursued to set the stage for a currency collapse, but rather to build credibility and ensure smoother, more transparent financial operations, both domestically and globally. Improved banking facilitates easier transactions, fosters greater trust with foreign institutions, and increases transparency, none of which is consistent with the goal of sudden, destructive devaluation. All of these institutional signs point towards systematic preparation for sustained long-term economic expansion, not desperate short-term shock therapy. A common source of anxiety and confusion among holders is the failure to clearly distinguish between two fundamentally different currency scenarios, revaluation and a LOP. Revaluation, which involves officially raising the dinar's value against other global currencies, is the aspirational scenario for many. It is entirely distinct from a LOP, which is a forced, destructive drop in value. When rumors circulate about currency changes, the natural human tendency is to hope for the positive, revaluation, but a rational assessment must be based on the likely impact of any change. Given the foundation of oil reserves, stable fiscal flows, and institutional stabilization, the more realistic future, if any change is planned, points toward measured, controlled growth, not a reckless, harmful devaluation. Any intentional government action will be strategically aimed at enhancing national credibility, not generating widespread financial panic. For those adopting a long-term approach to their dinar holdings, patience emerges as one of the most valuable assets. Currency investment in a recovering economy like Iraq is seldom a path for sudden, dramatic, or explosive gains. It is more accurately viewed as a long-term hold, akin to planting a seed. It requires time, consistent monitoring, and a belief in gradual, steady development and eventual global economic reintegration over an extended period. For holders who initially entered the market with the expectation of overnight, lightning-fast returns, this slow, deliberate process can feel profoundly frustrating. However, if your investment mindset is genuinely long-term, underpinned by a belief in stability and controlled development, then maintaining your position in the dinar may prove to be the most rational choice. Making decisions based solely on panic, such as selling out of sheer fear, is a financial action that overwhelmingly leads to permanent losses. We must also acknowledge the significant role of psychological pressure in this market. In environments rife with uncertainty, fear is an emotion that spreads with incredible speed. Individuals who hear rumors and observe others panicking often succumb to a reflexive fear, leading them to make impulsive, often irrational decisions, to sell off holdings, convert hastily, or abandon their position entirely. Yet financial decisions driven by fear are almost universally poor decisions. They can lead to the undervaluation of holdings, the missing of potential long-term benefits, and cashing out at the very bottom of market sentiment. This underscores the necessity of stepping back, taking a breath, revisiting the verifiable fundamentals, and actively resisting the urge to be swept away by collective hype. In the long run, calm, rational, and well-researched decision-making is what truly pays dividends in any complex financial environment. For those still seeking definitive clarity, we offer a simple, actionable checklist to combat unverified speculation. Ask yourself these key questions. First, is there any credible data or official reporting indicating that Iraq's oil revenue or exports are actually collapsing? Second, is there evidence of widespread bank defaults or an internal currency panic among the general Iraqi population? Third, are international trade partners formally pulling out of the country or refusing to accept the Iraqi currency for major transactions? Fourth, has the Iraqi government officially declared a detailed and credible plan for a forcible devaluation or LOP? If the factual, verifiable answer to all four of these critical questions is a clear and consistent no, then the idea of a currency LOP remains exactly what it is: a mere hypothesis, a fear-based speculation, and not an executable national plan. Since none of the major red flags outlined above are currently present, those who choose to continue holding the dinar should integrate this investment into a broader, long-term financial strategy. Diversification is always prudent, perhaps maintaining portions of your net worth in other stable assets, along with your currency and other investments. The strategy should be focused less on timing an elusive perfect moment for revaluation and more on exercising consistent patient observation. This approach ensures that, regardless of the precise timing or nature of any future currency adjustment, your overall financial position is protected. If revaluation eventually occurs, or if the dinar maintains its stability through sustained economic growth, you will be well positioned to benefit from that foundational patience. We must also consider the often overlooked dimension of global reputation and national perception. For Iraq to successfully continue its integration into the global economic framework, its national currency must retain a high degree of credibility. Global nations do not engage in substantial trade, long-term investment, or critical partnerships with countries whose currencies are perceived as volatile, unpredictable, or prone to sudden, arbitrary devaluation. For Iraq to attract foreign direct investment, rebuild its critical infrastructure, and secure crucial international trade deals, trust is an absolute prerequisite, and that trust is built upon stability. For this reason alone, any financially reckless move, such as a damaging currency LOP, would be self-defeating and counterproductive to the nation's most pressing goals. All of the national incentives strongly point toward careful, deliberate currency management, not financial chaos. Moreover, the internal factors of inflation and the domestic cost of living cannot be ignored. Even if a currency were forcibly devalued, the profound suffering inflicted upon the domestic economy and the general public would be immense. Prices for essential goods would spike, imports would become significantly more expensive, and the value of domestic savings would plummet. This kind of pain would disproportionately affect average citizens. For a government whose explicit aim is long-term recovery and social stability, the political, social, and economic cost of inflicting such widespread pain would be exorbitant. In short, a currency LOP would not merely hurt foreign holders, it would devastate the very citizens and social contract the government is tasked with protecting. The internal costs alone serve as a powerful deterrent. To be absolutely clear, this analysis is not intended to gloss over or sugarcoat the reality of existing risks. No financial position, currency, or investment is entirely without risk. External shocks, geopolitical tensions, shifts in global oil demand, and regional instability are all genuine factors that can and do impact Iraq's economy, and consequently the dinar. The core assertion remains that these inherent risks do not automatically translate into the necessity of a currency LOP. Risk requires an informed, vigilant, and data-driven approach to decision-making. Panic-driven speculation, however, is not a strategy. It is merely fear disguised with a false sense of urgency, which is precisely what the informed holder must resist. For those watching and contemplating their next steps, the guidance is clear. Resist the urge to rush. Do not blindly follow the loudest, most hysterical voice in an online forum. Instead, diligently track official financial reports, keep a close eye on oil export trends, monitor global oil prices, observe Iraq's balance of trade, and follow legitimate news regarding banking reforms. If possible, ensure your holdings are diversified across different asset classes. Recognize that long-term foundational stability is often an unspectacular, methodical process. It does not flash or explode overnight. It grows steadily through consistent policy, strengthened trade relationships, and the gradual accumulation of international confidence. If you are a new viewer or are contemplating an initial holding in the dinar, do not approach it with the expectation of an instant get-rich-quick scheme. View it as a potential long-term holding, a position fundamentally tied to a nation's history, its immense oil revenue, and its determined effort to rebuild both its credibility and its economic strength. Maintain strictly realistic expectations. A significant upward adjustment in value, should it ever materialize, is likely to be a gradual, multi-year process, not an explosive, immediate event. However, the fundamental underlying conditions strongly suggest that, at a bare minimum, a catastrophic, externally visible devaluation is an extremely unlikely scenario. Finally, we must recognize that holding a currency like the Iraqi dinar involves more than just numbers. It requires a degree of faith. Faith in a nation's potential for recovery, faith in its reconstruction efforts, and faith in the ability of its institutions to rebuild, for trade to normalize, and for lasting stability to be established. This is not purely speculative gambling. It represents a calculated long-term commitment that carries inherent risks, but also rests on a credible foundation. If your conviction is in Iraq's long-term future, hold with your eyes open to the facts. As we conclude, here is a final, overarching thought. In a global environment characterized by currency volatility and market crashes, holding a stable, institutionally supported, oil-backed currency is a significant financial anchor. The dinar, like any currency, is not flawless, but when compared to many highly speculative or high-risk assets, it possesses real structural foundations: oil, institutional history, and national economic necessity. This foundation significantly diminishes the probability of a systemic collapse. The bottom line for every viewer today is that the widespread panic is largely exaggerated. If you hold the dinar, or if you are considering doing so, base your decisions on verified data, a long-term perspective, and strictly realistic expectations. Do not allow fear or unverified hype to dictate your financial actions. Instead, let informed caution, unwavering patience, and continuous careful observation guide your strategy.